Have you ever paused in the stillness of a quiet room and asked yourself why some people seem to walk through life as though invisible doors swing open before them, while others beat against those same doors until their knuckles bleed and still nothing moves? Have you ever wondered, truly wondered, not with casual curiosity but with the desperate hunger of a soul that knows there must be more? Why two people can speak the same affirmation, read the same books, attend the same seminars, and yet one rises into magnificent abundance while the other remains shackled to the same stagnant circumstances year after year after year? What if I told you that the difference between those two people is not talent, not luck, not education, not connections, and not even effort, but a single sacred technique that operates in the hidden chambers of your own mind? A technique so simple that most people dismiss it, so powerful that those who grasp it never return to their former lives. Tonight, you are going to receive something rare. You are going to learn how manifestation truly works. Not the watered-down version, not the commercialized imitation, but the actual living mechanism by which your subconscious mind takes the invisible seeds of your belief and grows them into tangible, undeniable reality. This is the secret technique taught through the principles that Dr. Joseph Murphy dedicated his life to sharing with the world. And when you understand it, when it moves from your intellect into the marrow of your being, everything changes. Your relationship with money changes. Your relationship with opportunity changes. Your relationship with yourself changes. Because you will finally understand that you have never been separate from the abundance you seek. You have only been separated from the awareness of how to claim it. I want you to do something right now before we go any further. If you have found this channel, it is not by accident. The very fact that you are here tells me that something within you is ready to awaken, ready to receive, ready to step into a life that your conscious mind may not yet believe is possible, but that your deeper self already knows belongs to you. Subscribe to this channel now. Press the like button not as a casual gesture but as a deliberate act of faith, a signal to your own subconscious mind that you are saying yes to transformation. And in the comments below, write these words: I am ready to receive. Write them with conviction. Write them with feeling. Because the moment you declare your readiness, the infinite intelligence within you begins to rearrange your world. Now settle in. Let the noise of the world fall away. What you are about to hear may be the most important teaching you have ever encountered. There is a law operating in your life at this very moment, and it does not care whether you understand it, whether you believe in it, or whether you have ever heard its name. It operates with the same impersonal precision as gravity. You do not need to believe in gravity for it to hold you to the earth, and you do not need to believe in the law of your subconscious mind for it to shape every condition, every circumstance, and every experience you have ever known. But here is the difference between the person who suffers under this law and the person who thrives because of it. The one who thrives has learned to use it consciously, deliberately, and with sacred intention. And that is exactly what you are going to learn tonight. Let us begin at the beginning, not with technique, not with method, but with understanding. Because technique without understanding is like planting seeds in concrete. You may go through the motions perfectly, but nothing will grow because the foundation is wrong. So let us lay the foundation first, and let us lay it so deeply and so firmly that nothing can ever shake it loose from your mind. You possess two levels of mind. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is the observable, demonstrable architecture of your consciousness. There is the mind you are using right now to follow these words, the reasoning, analytical, choosing mind. This is your conscious mind. It is the gatekeeper, the selector, the one who decides what to think, what to focus upon, what to accept, and what to reject. And then there is the vast, immeasurable depth beneath it, The subconscious mind, which does not reason, does not argue, does not question, and does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. It simply receives and creates. It takes whatever impression is delivered to it with feeling and conviction, and it goes to work silently, ceaselessly, with infinite intelligence and boundless creative power, to bring that impression into physical form. Now listen carefully, because this is where most people make their first and most devastating error. They believe that thinking a thought is enough. They believe that saying words is enough. They read about abundance, they recite affirmations, they write goals on paper, and then they wonder why nothing changes. And the reason nothing changes is that they have never actually reached the subconscious mind. They have been speaking to themselves at the surface level, while the deep mind, the only mind that has creative power, remains untouched, still running the old programs, still operating on the old beliefs, still faithfully reproducing the same conditions it has always produced. The subconscious mind is not reached through repetition alone. It is not reached through volume or intensity of conscious effort. It is reached through one thing and one thing only: feeling. The feeling of the wish fulfilled. The internal sensation that what you desire is already real, already true, already yours. When you can produce that feeling within yourself, not as pretense, not as fantasy, but as a genuine inner experience, you have planted a seed in the most fertile soil in the universe. And that soil never fails to produce a harvest. The book of Proverbs tells us, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Notice it does not say "as a man thinketh in his head," it says "in his heart." The heart, in the ancient language of Scripture, represents the subconscious mind, the feeling nature, the deep conviction, the inner knowing that operates below the level of intellectual reasoning. You can think prosperity with your head all day long, but if your heart, your subconscious feeling, is one of lack, limitation, and fear, then lack, limitation, and fear will continue to be your experience. The law is impersonal. It gives you not what you ask for with your lips, but what you believe in your heart. Let me tell you about a man I will call Samuel, because his story illustrates this principle with extraordinary clarity. Samuel was a furniture craftsman in a small town, a man who worked with his hands and took great pride in the quality of his work. But despite his skill, despite the beauty of what he created, Samuel could never seem to earn more than just enough to survive. Every month was a struggle, every bill was a burden. And every time an opportunity seemed to appear on the horizon, something would go wrong. A client would cancel, a shipment would be damaged, a payment would be delayed. It was as though an invisible hand kept pushing abundance just beyond his reach. One evening, Samuel sat alone in his workshop, surrounded by the pieces he had built: a dining table with hand-carved legs, a bookshelf with dovetail joints so precise they looked like the work of a master from another century. And in that moment of quiet desperation, a thought came to him that he had never considered before. He realized that he had spent his entire life believing that fine craftsmen were poor. His father had been a craftsman. His grandfather had been a craftsman. And both of them had lived and died in financial hardship. Samuel had inherited not just their tools but their belief, the deep, unexamined conviction that a man who works with his hands can create beauty but never wealth. That belief was the seed in his subconscious mind, and his subconscious had been faithfully, perfectly, unerringly producing the harvest of that seed for decades. The moment Samuel recognized this, something shifted within him. He did not yet know what to do with this recognition, but the recognition itself was the first crack in the wall, because you cannot change what you cannot see. And most people never see the beliefs that are running their lives because those beliefs were planted so early and so deeply that they feel not like beliefs at all but like facts. Samuel had never questioned whether craftsmen must be poor. It had never occurred to him that this was an opinion, a mental habit, a program running in the background of his mind. He had accepted it as the nature of reality itself, and his subconscious mind, which cannot argue with what it is given, had made it so. This is the first great secret of manifestation. Before you can create something new, you must become aware of what you are currently creating and why. You must turn the light of consciousness upon the dark, unexamined beliefs that have been directing your life from the shadows. You must ask yourself with fearless honesty, what do I really believe about money? What do I really believe about my right to prosper? What do I really believe about the kind of life that is possible for someone like me? And you must be willing to hear the answers, even when those answers are painful, even when they reveal that you have been your own greatest obstacle all along. Now, awareness alone does not change the subconscious mind. If it did, every person who ever recognized a limiting belief would be instantly free of it. Awareness is necessary, but it is only the first step. The second step, the step that actually transforms, is the deliberate implantation of a new belief to replace the old one. And this is where the secret technique comes into play. The technique is this. In the drowsy, relaxed state just before sleep, when the conscious mind begins to release its grip and the doorway to the subconscious swings gently open, you must construct in your imagination a brief, vivid scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. Not a scene of wanting, not a scene of hopping, not a scene of asking, a scene of having, a scene that could only exist if your desire were already a present reality. And you must enter into that scene with all the sensory vividness you can summon, seeing what you would see, hearing what you would hear, feeling what you would feel, touching what you would touch, until the scene feels as real and as natural as any waking experience. Then you must fall asleep in that feeling. You must let the feeling of fulfillment be the last impression on your mind as consciousness fades, and you drift into the deep waters of sleep. Why sleep? Because in the moments before sleep, the conscious mind, the analytical, doubting, questioning gatekeeper, relaxes its vigilance. In that drowsy state, which is neither fully awake nor fully asleep, the subconscious mind is most receptive to impression. It is as though a door that is normally guarded opens just wide enough for you to slip through. And whatever you carry through that door, whatever feeling, whatever image, whatever sense of reality you bring with you, the subconscious accepts it as true. Not as a wish, not as a hope, as truth. And once the subconscious accepts something as true, it begins immediately to mobilize the infinite resources at its disposal to bring that truth into your outer world. This is not visualization as entertainment. This is not daydreaming. This is a precise, deliberate act of mental and spiritual creation. And the key, the absolute, non-negotiable key, is the feeling. You can construct the most elaborate mental scene in the world, but if it carries no feeling, it will produce nothing. It is feeling that penetrates the subconscious. It is feeling that gives the image its creative charge. It is feeling that transforms a thought into a cause and sets the law of mind into motion. Samuel, the furniture craftsman, learned this technique from an old customer, a retired professor who had come to pick up a commissioned rocking chair. The professor, noticing the worry lines etched deep into Samuel's face, asked him a simple question. Have you ever considered that the images you hold in your mind before sleep are instructions you give to the most powerful creative force in existence? Samuel did not fully understand, but something in the words pierced him. The professor explained, simply and without elaboration, that whatever Samuel felt to be true about himself as he fell asleep at night would be the template from which his tomorrows were constructed. That night Samuel did something he had never done before. He lay in bed and instead of rehearsing his worries, instead of calculating his debts, instead of imagining the worst, he constructed a simple scene. He imagined himself standing in a showroom, not his cramped workshop, but a beautiful, well-lit showroom, and a man in a fine suit was shaking his hand and saying, "Samuel, this is the most extraordinary collection I have ever seen. We want to feature your work in our catalog." He could feel the man's handshake. He could hear the words. He could feel the warmth of pride and gratitude swelling in his chest. He held that scene, returning to it every time his mind wandered, until he fell asleep cradled in the feeling of having been recognized, celebrated, and abundantly rewarded for his craft. He did this every night for 3 weeks. Nothing happened in the outer world for those 3 weeks. His bank account did not change. No mysterious checks arrived. No phone rang with unexpected opportunities. And this is where most people abandon the technique, at the point of apparent delay, at the moment when the outer world has not yet caught up with the inner change. But Samuel, perhaps because he had nothing left to lose, persisted. He continued to fall asleep every night in the feeling of success, in the feeling of abundance, in the feeling that his work was valued, and that wealth flowed to him easily and naturally. On the 23rd day, a woman walked into his workshop. She was a magazine editor from a city 300 miles away, visiting the town to see relatives. She had wandered past his shop on a whim, glanced through the window, and been stopped in her tracks by the beauty of a hand-carved vanity displayed near the entrance. She came inside, spent an hour examining his work, and before she left, she asked if she could photograph his pieces for a feature article in a national design publication. That article was published 6 weeks later. Within 3 months of its publication, Samuel had a waiting list of orders stretching 14 months into the future. He was forced to hire 3 assistants. He moved into a proper showroom. And within 18 months, the man who had believed that craftsmen must be poor was earning more in a single month than he had previously earned in an entire year. Now, I want you to understand something about this story. The magazine editor's visit was not magic. It was not supernatural in the way the word is commonly understood. It was the perfectly natural operation of a law that most people do not know exists. Samuel's subconscious mind, having accepted the feeling of success and recognition as true, began to orchestrate circumstances, arrange events, move people, and create connections that the conscious mind could never have planned or predicted. The subconscious mind has access to channels of communication and influence that extend far beyond the reach of conscious thought. It operates through what we might call infinite intelligence, the same intelligence that governs the orbiting of planets, the beating of your heart, the growth of a seed into a tree. When you impress an idea upon the subconscious with feeling and conviction, you are enlisting that intelligence on your behalf, and it never fails. But and this is crucial, it works according to the nature of the impression you give it. If you impress it with fear, it will create circumstances to justify that fear. If you impress it with lack, it will create conditions of lack. If you impress it with unworthiness, it will arrange a life that reflects unworthiness. The subconscious mind is not moral. It is not selective. It does not say, "This belief will harm you, so I will reject it." It says nothing at all. It simply creates. It is the most faithful servant in all of existence, and it will build you a palace or a prison depending entirely on the blueprint you provide. This is why the master teacher said in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 24, "What things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Look at the structure of that instruction. It does not say believe that you will receive them someday. It does not say believe that you might receive them if conditions are favorable. It says believe that ye receive them, present tense, current reality, existing fact. This is the secret hidden in plain sight in the greatest spiritual text ever written. Prayer, in its truest sense, is not begging God for something you lack. It is the act of impressing upon your subconscious mind, which is your direct connection to infinite intelligence, to the divine presence itself. the feeling that what you desire is already an accomplished fact. When you can do this, when you can genuinely feel the reality of your desire before there is any physical evidence to support it, you have prayed effectively. And the answer must come, because the law cannot fail any more than gravity can fail. Let me tell you about another individual, a woman I will call Miriam, because her experience reveals a different dimension of this teaching. Miriam was a widow in her late 50s. Her husband had passed unexpectedly, leaving behind not a fortune but a mountain of debts she had not known existed. The house carried a second mortgage she had never been told about. Credit cards had been used to fund a failing business venture she had not been consulted on. And now, alone and overwhelmed, she faced the very real possibility of losing her home and everything in it. Miriam was not a student of mental science. She had never read a book on the subconscious mind. She had never practiced visualization. But she was a woman of deep, quiet faith. And in her darkest hour, she did something instinctive, something born not of technique but of spiritual desperation. She knelt beside her bed one night and said aloud, "I do not know how, but I know that I am provided for. I place my trust in the infinite wisdom that has sustained me all my life, and I give thanks that the way is being made clear even though I cannot yet see it." Then she rose, got into bed, and fell asleep in a feeling that she later described as a strange, warm peace, as though someone had wrapped a blanket around my soul and told me everything would be all right. She did not understand the mechanics of what she had done. She did not know that by releasing her fear, affirming provision, and falling asleep in the feeling of being cared for, she had given her subconscious mind a clear and powerful instruction. But that is exactly what she did, and her subconscious mind responded with the same creative precision it always does. Within 10 days, a letter arrived from an attorney in another state. Miriam's husband, years before their marriage, had taken out a life insurance policy through a former employer. The policy had been paid up and forgotten. Its value was sufficient to pay every outstanding debt with a substantial amount remaining. Miriam had known nothing of this policy. Her husband had apparently forgotten it himself. Yet the subconscious mind, connected as it is to infinite intelligence, knew. And when Miriam gave it the instruction, "I am provided for," it found the provision that already existed and brought it to her attention through the perfectly natural means of a letter from an attorney. Some will hear this and say it was coincidence. But I ask you, how many coincidences must accumulate before we acknowledge that a law is at work? How many times must the inner conviction precede the outer manifestation before we admit that the relationship between the two is not random but causal? The skeptic demands proof, and proof is given, and still the skeptic demands more proof. Meanwhile, the person of faith applies the law, receives the result, and moves forward into an ever-expanding life. You must decide which of these you wish to be. And I suggest to you, with all the conviction I possess, that faith is not blind. It is the most clear-sighted vision available to the human soul, because it sees what the physical eyes cannot yet perceive, and knows what the intellect cannot yet calculate. Now let us go deeper into the technique, because understanding the principle is essential, but applying it is where the transformation occurs. I want to give you specific, practical guidance that you can use tonight, not someday, not when conditions are right, but tonight, the moment you lay your head upon your pillow. First, you must choose your desire, and I want you to choose something specific, not "I want more money." That is vague, and the subconscious mind responds best to specificity. If you desire a specific amount of income, be specific. If you desire a particular opportunity, define it clearly. If you desire to be free of a debt, know the exact amount. The more concrete and specific your desire, the more clearly the subconscious can work to produce it. Second, you must construct a scene that implies the fulfillment of that desire. This scene should be brief, no more than a few moments long. It should be something you would naturally experience after your desire has been realized. Not the moment of receiving necessarily, but a moment that presupposes the receiving has already occurred. For instance, if your desire is to own a home, you might imagine yourself standing in the kitchen of that home, running your hand along the countertop, feeling the cool surface beneath your fingers, looking through the window at the garden outside. If your desire is a promotion, you might imagine a colleague congratulating you, feeling the handshake, hearing the words. The scene must be vivid, sensory, and real to you. Third, and this is the element that most people neglect, you must add feeling. Not forced emotion, not manufactured excitement, but the genuine inner feeling that this is real, this is happening, this is true. The feeling of naturalness is often more powerful than the feeling of excitement, because excitement can carry with it a vibration of disbelief, as though you are amazed because you did not really expect it. What you want is the calm, settled feeling of something that is simply true. The way you feel about the chair you are sitting in right now, you do not feel excited about it, but you have no doubt it exists. That is the quality of feeling you want to bring to your imaginal scene. Quiet certainty, peaceful knowing, the absence of doubt. Fourth, you must perform this technique in the drowsy state preceding sleep. This is the state known in some traditions as the hypnagogic state, the borderland between waking and sleeping where the conscious mind loosens its hold and the subconscious becomes directly accessible. You enter this state naturally every night. You have simply never used it deliberately. Tonight, as you lie in bed and feel the heaviness of sleep beginning to descend upon you, begin to play your scene. Run through it slowly. Feel it. Live in it. And if your mind wanders, as it will, gently bring it back to the scene. Do not fight the wandering. Simply return. Again and again, with patience and persistence, return to the scene and the feeling. Continue until you fall asleep within the scene, wrapped in the feeling of fulfillment. Fifth and finally, you must release. This is perhaps the most difficult part for the Western mind, trained as it is in effort and striving. After you have performed your pre-sleep technique, you must let go. You must trust that the subconscious mind has received the impression and is working to bring it into form. You do not dig up a seed every morning to see if it is growing. You plant it, you water it, and you trust the intelligence of nature to do its work. The same is true of the mental seed you have planted. Digging it up with doubt, examining it with anxiety, questioning it with impatience, these acts undo the planting. They neutralize the impression. They send contradictory instructions to the subconscious mind and create confusion where there should be clarity. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Be still and know that I am God." The I am within you, the subconscious mind connected to infinite intelligence, is God in action in your life. Your task is to be still, to cease striving, to trust, to know. Not to hope, not to wish, not to beg, to know, with the same certainty with which you know the sun will rise tomorrow, that what you have impressed upon the deep mind must and will come to pass. Let me share with you one more account that illuminates the power of this release. There was a young woman I will call Elena, who had spent 7 years trying to build a career as an interior designer. She had talent. She had training. She had taste that others admired, but she could not seem to attract clients who valued her work enough to pay what it was worth. She was constantly undercharging, constantly taking projects beneath her ability, constantly feeling that she had to prove herself over and over again just to survive. Alina discovered the pre-sleep technique and began to practice it with great enthusiasm. Every night she would imagine herself in a beautiful office, reviewing plans for a major project, feeling the satisfaction of doing work she loved at the level she knew she was capable of. She did this for 2 weeks, and then something interesting happened. Her anxiety increased rather than decreased. She became obsessed with watching for signs that the technique was working. She checked her email compulsively. She analyzed every conversation for hidden meaning. She scrutinized every event of her day, looking for evidence that her manifestation was on its way. And in doing so, she was communicating to her subconscious mind not faith but doubt, not certainty but desperation, not having but wanting. And wanting by its very nature implies not having. The subconscious was receiving a confused and contradictory message. I have this at night, and where is it? Why hasn't it come? Is it working? All day long. It was only when Alina, exhausted by her own striving, finally surrendered, when she said to herself, I have done my part. I have planted the seed. Now I am going to live my life and trust the process, even if nothing changes for a year, that the shift occurred. Within 3 weeks of her surrender, she received a phone call from an architect she had met briefly at a conference 18 months earlier. He was overseeing the renovation of a boutique hotel and needed a designer immediately. The budget was larger than anything Alina had ever worked with. The architect told her that her name had come to him out of nowhere while he was reviewing a list of potential designers. He could not explain why he chose to call her, except that something told him she was the right person. Something told him. That something was the operation of the subconscious mind, working not only through Alina but through all the people and circumstances connected to her desire. This is the dimension of the law that is most awe-inspiring and most difficult for the rational mind to accept. The subconscious mind does not merely change you, it changes the world around you. It moves people. It arranges events. It creates bridges where there were none. It opens doors that you did not know existed. And it does all of this without violating anyone's free will, without manipulating anyone, without coercion or force. It works through the path of least resistance, through the natural flow of events, through what appears to the outer eye as coincidence, synchronicity, or luck, but is in truth the lawful, orderly operation of infinite intelligence, responding to the clear instruction of a subconscious mind that has been properly impressed. Matthew chapter 7 verse 7 instructs us, Ask, and it shall be given you, seek, and ye shall find, knock, and it shall be opened unto you. This is not a conditional promise. It is not qualified with exceptions and exclusions. It is a statement of universal law spoken by one who understood the law perfectly. Ask, which means to impress your desire upon the subconscious mind through feeling and imagination. Seek, which means to maintain your focus and your faith, to continue looking in the direction of your desire even when the outer world presents contradictory evidence. Knock, which means to persist, to return to the technique again and again with patience and conviction, knowing that the door must open because the law that governs it is absolute. But notice what else the verse says. It shall be given you, not it might be given, not it could be given if you are good enough, worthy enough, spiritual enough. It shall be given. The emphasis is on certainty. The emphasis is on inevitability. The law does not play favorites. It does not discriminate between the saint and the sinner, the educated and the uneducated, the young and the old. It responds to belief. Period. Whatever you truly believe in the depths of your subconscious mind, that is what you will experience in the world of form. This is the most democratic, the most egalitarian, the most radically inclusive principle ever taught in the history of human spirituality. No one is excluded. No one is unworthy. No one lacks the equipment to use this law. You have a subconscious mind. You have the ability to imagine. You have the capacity to feel. Therefore, you have everything you need to transform your life. I want to address something now that many people struggle with, and I want to address it directly and without evasion, because it is one of the greatest obstacles to successful manifestation. It is the question of worthiness. So many people, when they first encounter this teaching, feel a surge of hope followed almost immediately by a wave of doubt that sounds something like this. This might work for other people, but not for me. I have made too many mistakes. I am not spiritual enough. I do not deserve abundance. Who am I to ask for wealth when there are people in the world who have so much less? Let me speak to this with absolute clarity. The law of the subconscious mind does not operate on the basis of deserving. The sun does not shine only on those who deserve sunlight. The rain does not fall only on the fields of righteous farmers. Electricity does not flow only through wires owned by worthy people. These are laws of nature, and they operate impersonally, impartially, and without moral judgment. The law of mind is no different. It does not ask whether you deserve what you are requesting. It asks only whether you believe it. If you believe you are unworthy of abundance, then unworthiness becomes the operative belief, and the subconscious will create circumstances that confirm your unworthiness, not as punishment, but as faithful reflection. If you change that belief, if you begin to accept at the feeling level that abundance is your birthright, that you were created by an infinite source that knows no lack, and that your prosperity diminishes no one else's, then the subconscious will reflect that belief just as faithfully. The psalmist declared, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Consider the radical abundance of that statement. Not "I shall want less," not "I shall get by," not "I shall scrape together enough to survive." I shall not want. Total provision, complete sufficiency, the absolute absence of lack. This is not the prayer of someone negotiating with a reluctant God. This is the declaration of someone who understands that the infinite source, the Lord, the I Am, the subconscious mind connected to universal intelligence, provides abundantly, lavishly, and without condition to those who open themselves to receive. And that is precisely the point, opening yourself to receive. Many people are blocked not because the supply is withheld, but because they are unconsciously refusing to receive it. Their beliefs about unworthiness, about the sinfulness of wealth, about the virtue of poverty, about the danger of having too much, these beliefs function as a closed door. The abundance presses against the door ceaselessly because infinite intelligence is always seeking expression through you, but you hold the door shut with your own limiting convictions. The technique I have described, the pre-sleep impression, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the imaginal scene lived in as though it were real, this technique opens the door. It does not create the supply. The supply already exists. It opens you to receive what has always been available. Philippians chapter 4, verse 19 affirms this. My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory. All your need. Not some of your needs, not only your spiritual needs. All your need, including financial need, material need, practical need. The riches in glory are the infinite resources of the universal mind, the same mind that creates galaxies and sustains atoms, the same mind that beats your heart 60 or 70 or 80 times every minute without any conscious effort on your part. That mind is your partner in creation. It is not separate from you. It is the deepest dimension of who you are. When you go within, when you quiet the outer mind and touch the still point of inner awareness, you are touching the face of infinite power. And from that place, from that sacred center, you can speak a new word for your life, plant a new seed in the fertile soil of the deep mind, and watch a new harvest rise in your experience. I want you to sit with this truth tonight. I want you to let it sink below the surface of your intellect and take root in your feeling nature. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not at the mercy of the economy, the job market, your past, your education, or any external condition. You are a creator. You have always been a creator. The life you are living right now is the creation of your own subconscious mind, built from the beliefs and feelings you have held most consistently over the years. And if that life is not what you desire, if it falls short of the abundance, the joy, the freedom that your heart tells you is possible, then you have the power to change it. Not by changing the world first, but by changing yourself first. By changing what you believe. by changing what you feel to be true, by taking that quiet, private, sacred time before sleep to plant a new image, a new conviction, a new feeling in the depths of your being, and then trusting the law to bring it to fruition. The power is within you. It has always been within you. It was within you before you knew its name. It was within you before you understood how to use it. It was within you on your worst day and on your best day. It does not come and go. It does not increase or decrease. It is constant, infinite, and eternally available. The only variable is your awareness of it and your willingness to use it. Tonight, let your awareness expand. Tonight, let your willingness deepen. Tonight, let the old beliefs of lack and limitation begin to dissolve like shadows before the dawn, and let the light of a new understanding, the understanding that you are one with the infinite source of all abundance, rise within you and illuminate every corner of your mind. You are standing at the threshold of a new life. The door is open. The only question is whether you will walk through it. And I tell you now, with the certainty of one who has witnessed this law transform life after life after life, if you walk through that door, if you commit yourself to this practice, if you persist in faith even when the evidence of your senses contradicts what you are building in your imagination, you will look back on this moment as the turning point, the moment everything changed, the moment you stopped waiting for the world to give you permission to prosper and began to claim your prosperity from within. The infinite is not someday, the infinite is now, and you are its chosen expression. There is a moment in every person's journey toward abundance when the intellectual understanding of the law drops from the mind into the heart, and what was once a concept becomes a living conviction. That moment cannot be forced. It cannot be scheduled, but it can be prepared for, and everything I shared with you in the first part of this teaching was preparation for what I am about to share with you now. Because now we go deeper, into the subtleties that separate those who dabble in this science from those who master it, into the refinements that transform occasional results into a consistent, unshakable way of life, and into the sacred territory where your relationship with abundance ceases to be a practice and becomes your permanent state of being. Let us begin with something that most teachings on this subject neglect entirely, the question of mental atmosphere. You see, it is not enough to perform the pre-sleep technique with precision and then spend the remaining hours of your waking life in a state of fear, worry, resentment, or complaint. Your subconscious mind is not only receiving impressions at night, it is receiving impressions every moment of every day. Every thought you think with feeling, every reaction you have to circumstances, every inner conversation you carry on with yourself, all of these are impressions being absorbed by the deep mind. And if the dominant tone of your waking life contradicts the tone of your nighttime practice, the results will be inconsistent at best and non-existent at worst. This is why the truly successful practitioners of subconscious mind science do not merely use a technique. They cultivate a mental atmosphere. They monitor the general tenor of their inner life throughout the day, not with rigid, exhausting vigilance, but with the gentle awareness of someone who understands the stakes. They catch themselves when they begin to spiral into worry, not by suppressing the worry, but by gently redirecting their attention toward the truth they have chosen to believe. They refuse to dwell in mental poverty, even when physical poverty is still present in their circumstances. They understand that the inner world is the cause and the outer world is the effect, and therefore the inner world must change first, must lead, must set the standard that the outer world will eventually follow. This does not mean you must pretend that difficulties do not exist. It does not mean you paste a false smile over genuine pain or deny the reality of a challenge you are facing. What it means is that you refuse to give the difficulty the final word. You acknowledge it, you deal with it practically, and then you return your attention to the truth, The truth that the condition is temporary, that the law is working on your behalf, that what you have planted in your subconscious mind is growing even now beneath the surface, and that the harvest is certain even though you cannot yet see it above the ground. Think of it this way. A farmer plants wheat in the spring. For weeks after planting, the field looks exactly the same as it did before, bare, brown, empty. If the farmer judged only by what his eyes could see, he might conclude that nothing was happening, that the planting had failed, that the seeds were dead. But the farmer knows better. He knows that beneath the surface, invisible to the eye, the seeds are germinating, splitting open, sending roots downward and shoots upward, engaging in an intricate process of transformation that will, in its own time, produce a field of golden grain. The farmer does not dig up the seeds to check on them. He does not panic when the field remains bare after 2 weeks. He trusts the process because he understands the law of growth. And he continues to water, to tend, to protect the soil, knowing that his role is to maintain the conditions for growth and to trust nature to do the rest. You must be that farmer. Your subconscious mind is the soil. Your imaginal act performed with feeling before sleep is the planting. And your mental atmosphere throughout the day, your habitual thoughts, your dominant feelings, your inner conversations, these are the watering and tending of the soil. If you plant a seed of abundance at night and then flood the soil with worry, doubt, and fear all day, you are drowning your own crop. But if you plant the seed at night and then maintain a general atmosphere of faith, gratitude, and expectancy during the day, you are creating the perfect conditions for rapid and abundant growth. Gratitude, in particular, is one of the most powerful forces available to you in this process. Not gratitude as a social nicety, not gratitude as a spiritual obligation, but genuine, felt gratitude for what you are in the process of receiving, gratitude expressed before the physical evidence has appeared. This is what I call prophetic gratitude, and it is one of the most potent accelerators of manifestation that exists. When you give thanks for something before it has arrived, you are sending an unmistakable signal to your subconscious mind. This is real to me. This is already mine. I am so certain of its arrival that I am expressing gratitude for it now, in advance, the way I would thank a trusted friend who told me a gift was on its way. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between gratitude for something already possessed and gratitude for something vividly imagined. It registers only the feeling, and the feeling of gratitude is the feeling of having. Gratitude is, by definition, a response to receiving. Therefore, when you feel genuine gratitude, you are automatically generating the feeling of having received. And the feeling of having received is the very impression that activates the creative law of the subconscious mind. Let me illustrate this with the story of a man I will call Victor. Victor was a taxi driver in a large city, a man who worked 14-hour shifts and still struggled to make ends meet. He was not uneducated. He held a degree in engineering from his home country, but circumstances had conspired to place him behind the wheel of a cab rather than at the helm of the career he had trained for. Victor's inner life was dominated by bitterness. He resented his passengers, many of whom earned in a single day what he earned in a week. He resented his circumstances. He resented the country that had promised opportunity and delivered struggle. And every night he fell asleep in a fog of frustration and exhaustion, replaying the injustices of the day, reinforcing the feeling that life had cheated him and that nothing would ever change. Victor's turning point came not from a book or a seminar, but from a conversation with an elderly passenger, a retired schoolteacher who rode in his cab every Wednesday afternoon. Over the course of several months, a friendship developed between them, and one day the teacher said something that Victor never forgot. She said, "Victor, I have lived 81 years, and I have learned exactly one thing worth knowing. The universe gives you more of whatever you are grateful for. If you are grateful for nothing, you receive more nothing. If you are grateful for the little you have, the little multiplies. It is mathematics of the soul, and it never fails. Victor was struck by her certainty. She was not wealthy. She lived modestly on a teacher's pension. Yet there was a radiance about her, a contentment and a warmth that Victor had not seen in people who earned 50 times what she did. He decided to test her theory, not with great faith, but with the cautious curiosity of an engineer running an experiment. That night, instead of replaying his grievances, Victor lay in bed and forced himself to find things to be grateful for. It was difficult at first. The list was short and the gratitude felt mechanical. He was grateful for his health. He was grateful for his cab, which, despite its age, ran reliably. He was grateful for his small apartment, which was warm in winter. He was grateful for the elderly teacher who had spoken to him with kindness. And then, as an experiment, he added something he did not yet possess. He said, quietly, in the privacy of his own mind, "I am grateful for the engineering position that is coming to me. I give thanks for the opportunity to use my training and my skills in a role that rewards me abundantly. I feel the satisfaction of meaningful work and generous compensation, and I am deeply grateful." He did not believe it fully. Not that first night. But the act of saying it, of feeling even a flicker of gratitude for something not yet manifested, shifted something within him. The bitterness that had been his constant companion loosened its grip ever so slightly, and in the space that opened up in the tiny gap between resentment and gratitude, something new began to take root. Victor continued this practice every night for 2 months. Gradually, the gratitude became less mechanical and more genuine. He found himself noticing beauty in the city he had previously resented. The way light fell between buildings at sunset, the sound of laughter from the back seat, the quiet dignity of the night shift when the streets emptied and the city breathed. His passengers began to respond differently to him. Tips increased. Conversations deepened. People began to ask for him specifically, requesting the driver with the kind voice when they called the dispatch. And then, in the 7th week of his practice, a passenger left a briefcase in the back seat. Victor found it, opened it to look for identification, and discovered that it belonged to the chief operating officer of an engineering firm. He drove immediately to the address on the business card inside, returned the briefcase personally, and in the 10-minute conversation that followed, mentioned that he held an engineering degree. The COO, impressed by Victor's honesty, his articulateness, and the quiet confidence that had begun to emanate from him since he started his gratitude practice, invited him to submit his resume. Victor was hired within 2 weeks, not at the entry level, but in a mid-level position that recognized his years of experience and his advanced training. Was this a coincidence? Was it luck? Was it the random collision of unrelated events? You may call it what you wish, but I call it the law. I call it the subconscious mind having been impressed with a new feeling, the feeling of gratitude for meaningful, well-compensated work, orchestrating events with a precision and an elegance that no conscious planning could have achieved. The briefcase was left in Victor's cab and not in any of the 10,000 other cabs in the city. The COO responded to Victor's character with an openness that was, by all accounts, unusual for him. The position that perfectly matched Victor's qualifications happened to be available at that exact moment. Each of these events, viewed in isolation, seems ordinary. Viewed together, they form a pattern of such intelligence and purpose that the word coincidence becomes laughably inadequate. This is how manifestation really works. Not through magic, not through wishful thinking, not through chanting phrases at the universe like a child shouting orders at the sky. It works through the precise, lawful, scientifically reliable operation of the subconscious mind. which, when properly impressed with a feeling of fulfillment, activates channels of intelligence and influence that reach far beyond anything the conscious mind can see, predict, or control. Your task is not to figure out how your desire will manifest. Your task is not to plan the route, identify the contacts, or engineer the circumstances. Your task is singular and sacred. Impress the feeling of the wish fulfilled upon the subconscious mind, maintain a mental atmosphere consistent with that feeling, and then release the outcome to the infinite intelligence that knows all, sees all, and can arrange all. Isaiah chapter 45 speaks of this when the divine voice declares, "I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron, and I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places." What a magnificent promise this is! The infinite intelligence goes before you. It straightens the crooked path. It breaks the gates that seem impenetrable. It cuts through the barriers that appear immovable. And it reveals to you treasures that were hidden, riches that were secret, provision that existed all along in places you never thought to look. But it does this only when you trust it, only when you stop trying to do its job for it, only when you plant your seed, tend your soil, and step back with the faith of a farmer who knows the harvest is certain. Now I want to address one of the most common questions that arises when people begin to practice this teaching. What about action? Does this mean I simply lie in bed imagining and never do anything? The answer is no, but the nature of the action changes fundamentally when you understand the law. Before you understood the law, action was the primary creative force in your life. You worked hard, you pushed, you struggled, you strived, and whatever results came were the direct product of your effort. This is how most of the world lives, and it is an exhausting, limited, and often disappointing way to create. Because effort alone, without the alignment of the subconscious mind, is like rowing a boat against the current. You may make progress, but it is slow, painful, and unsustainable. When you align the subconscious mind with your desire, when you impress the feeling of fulfillment upon the deep mind and maintain that impression with consistency and faith, action does not cease, but it transforms. Instead of forced action, you find yourself moved to inspired action. Instead of pushing against closed doors, you find yourself drawn toward open ones. Instead of calculating and strategizing with anxious effort, you find ideas arising spontaneously, impulses guiding you toward the right person at the right time, a sense of flow carrying you forward with an ease that feels almost effortless. This is not passivity. This is the highest form of activity, activity aligned with infinite intelligence, activity guided by a wisdom greater than the conscious mind, activity that produces results out of all proportion to the effort involved. The person who acts from this place does not work less than others, but they work differently. Their work has a quality of rightness about it, a sense of being in the right place doing the right thing at the right time. And the results reflect that alignment. They are greater, they come faster, and they sustain themselves longer than anything produced by effort alone. There was a young man I will call Daniel who understood this distinction perfectly, though he learned it through painful experience before joyful understanding. Daniel was a real estate salesman, ambitious, hardworking, and perpetually stressed. He was the first person in the office every morning and the last to leave every night. He made more calls, knocked on more doors, and sent more emails than any of his colleagues. And yet, month after month, his sales lagged behind those of a colleague named Martin, who appeared to work half as hard and produce twice the results. Daniel was baffled and resentful. He watched Martin arrive late, leave early, take long lunches, and still close deal after deal with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. Clients seemed to appear in Martin's life effortlessly. Listings fell into his lap. Negotiations went smoothly. It was as though the business flowed to Martin while Daniel had to fight for every scrap. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day in which a deal Daniel had worked on for 3 months fell through at the last moment, he confronted Martin directly. "What is your secret?" he demanded. "How do you do it?" Martin looked at him calmly and said something that Daniel initially dismissed as ridiculous, but would later come to regard as the most valuable business advice he had ever received. Martin said, "Every night before I fall asleep, I see myself depositing a large commission check. I feel the pen in my hand. I feel the satisfaction. I feel grateful. And then I let go and trust that the right deals will come to me. During the day, I follow my instincts. If I feel drawn to call someone, I call them. If I feel drawn to visit a property, I visit it. I don't force anything. I don't push. I allow." Daniel thought Martin was delusional, but desperation is a powerful motivator, and Daniel was desperate enough to try anything. That night he lay in bed, and for the first time in his adult life, instead of planning tomorrow's assault on the market, he imagined a simple scene. He was sitting at his desk, looking at a commission statement showing the highest monthly income of his career. He felt the paper in his hands. He felt the smile on his face. He felt the deep breath of satisfaction. And he fell asleep in that feeling. He did this every night for a month, and during the day something strange began to happen. He found himself relaxing, not becoming lazy, relaxing. The frantic energy that had driven him began to soften into something more fluid and natural. He still worked, but he worked differently. He began to follow hunches rather than spreadsheets. He called people he felt drawn to call rather than robotically working through a list. He visited properties that interested him rather than those that scored highest on his analytical matrix. And the results were stunning. In his first month of this new approach, Daniel closed more deals than in any previous month of his career. In the second month, he surpassed even that. By the end of the quarter, he was the top producer in his office, and the quality of his experience had changed even more dramatically than the quantity of his income. He was no longer exhausted. He was no longer stressed. He was no longer resentful of colleagues or fearful of the future. He had discovered that when the inner mind is properly aligned with the desire, the outer activity becomes a joyful expression of purpose rather than a desperate struggle for survival. I share this story not to suggest that effort has no place in life. It does, but effort that flows from inner alignment is qualitatively different from effort that is driven by inner fear. One is creative, the other is reactive. One is inspired, the other is desperate. One works with the current, the other works against it, and the results reflect the difference with mathematical precision. Now let me speak about something that many practitioners of this science encounter, and that, if not understood, can derail the entire process. I am speaking about the bridge of incidents, the sequence of events by which the subconscious mind brings your desire from the invisible realm of imagination into the visible realm of physical experience. This bridge is often unexpected. It rarely looks the way you imagined it would. And it sometimes involves events that appear on the surface to be setbacks, obstacles, or even disasters. There was a woman I will call Rosalind who provides a vivid illustration of this principle. Rosalind desired to start her own bakery. She had been a baker all her life, working in other people's kitchens, and she longed for a place of her own. She applied the pre-sleep technique faithfully, imagining herself standing behind the counter of her own shop, greeting customers, wrapping loaves of bread, smelling the warm yeast and sugar in the air. She held this image with deep feeling and quiet certainty for weeks. Then something happened that seemed like the worst possible outcome. She was fired from her job. The bakery where she had worked for 11 years was sold to a new owner who brought in his own staff. Rosalind was devastated. She felt betrayed, abandoned, and terrified. She had a moment, a very human, very understandable moment, when she wanted to abandon the technique, abandon the faith, abandon the entire teaching, and surrender to despair. But something within her, the seed that had been planted in her subconscious mind, the feeling of ownership and fulfillment that she had nurtured night after night, held firm. And she remembered a principle she had heard, and that I now share with you. The subconscious mind sometimes removes what is in the way before it delivers what is on the way. The old job, comfortable, familiar, safe, was actually an obstacle to Rosalind's deeper desire. As long as she had the security of that position, she would never have taken the leap into entrepreneurship. She would have continued to dream about her own bakery while spending her days in someone else's. The firing, which appeared to be a catastrophe, was in reality the subconscious mind clearing the path. Rosalind's severance pay, combined with a small inheritance she had been reluctant to touch, gave her just enough to lease a modest storefront. A former colleague, also let go in the sale, agreed to work with her for a share of the profits rather than a salary. A local newspaper, hearing the story of two veteran bakers striking out on their own, ran a feature article that generated a flood of customers before the doors even opened. Within a year, Rosalind's bakery was one of the most beloved establishments in her neighborhood. Within 3 years, she had opened a second location. The bridge of incidents is not always pleasant, but it is always purposeful. And if you can hold your faith steady through the apparent detours and disappointments, if you can trust that the intelligence guiding the process is infinitely wiser than your conscious mind and sees the complete picture while you see only a fragment, then you will arrive at your destination. Not despite the obstacles, but through them. The obstacles are part of the bridge. They are the subconscious mind rearranging the furniture of your life to make room for what you have ordered. Luke chapter 12, verse 32 offers perhaps the most tender and reassuring instruction in all of Scripture. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sit with those words. Let them wash over you. It is the good pleasure of the infinite to give you the kingdom, not reluctantly, not conditionally, not after you have proven yourself worthy. It is the good pleasure, the joy, the delight of the infinite source to pour abundance into your life. The only barrier is fear, and fear is nothing more than a habit of thought, a pattern of feeling, a program running in the subconscious mind that can be replaced, overwritten, dissolved by the persistent, patient application of a new feeling. The feeling of being cared for, provided for, abundantly and unconditionally loved by the intelligence that created you and sustains you and is, in truth, the deepest reality of who you are. You are not separate from this intelligence. You have never been separate from it. The sense of separation is the grand illusion, the primal misunderstanding from which all suffering flows. When you quiet your mind, when you go within, when you touch the still point of inner awareness where thought ceases and being alone remains, you are touching the infinite. You are recognizing that the subconscious mind is not merely a psychological mechanism, but a sacred portal, the meeting place between the individual and the universal, the point at which your personal consciousness opens into the vast ocean of infinite mind. And from that ocean, anything can be drawn, any desire can be fulfilled, any condition can be transformed, because the ocean does not know scarcity. The ocean does not know limitation. The ocean is abundance itself, and you are a wave upon its surface, not separate from it, but an expression of it, a unique and unrepeatable manifestation of its infinite creativity. When you understand this, truly understand it, not intellectually but in the marrow of your bones, the question of whether you can manifest abundance becomes absurd. Of course you can. You are abundance. You are made of it. It is your nature, your essence, your birthright. The only question is whether you will recognize it and claim it, or continue to live in the shadow of a false belief that tells you you are small, you are limited, You are separate from the source of all good. I want to speak now about the role of persistence, because no teaching on manifestation is complete without addressing the reality that results do not always appear instantly. In a world conditioned by instant gratification, where food arrives in minutes, messages cross the globe in seconds, and entertainment is available at the touch of a button, the idea that a mental seed might require weeks or months to mature can feel almost unbearable. But I tell you that the period of waiting is not dead time. It is the most alive time in the entire creative process. It is the time during which roots are being established, connections are being formed, circumstances are being arranged, and the invisible architecture of your manifestation is being constructed with a precision and a thoroughness that would be impossible if everything happened all at once. The person who abandons the technique after 2 weeks because nothing has changed is like a woman who plants a rose garden on Monday and tears up the soil on Wednesday because no blooms have appeared. The rose needs time. The seed needs time. Your desire needs time, not because the law is slow, but because the physical world is dense, and the translation of an invisible reality into a visible one involves the movement and rearrangement of matter, people, circumstances, and events. The subconscious mind works at the speed of wisdom, not at the speed of anxiety, and wisdom takes whatever time is needed to produce a result that is complete, whole, and sustainable. So persist. Return to your pre-sleep practice every night with the same feeling, the same scene, the same quiet certainty. If doubt arises during the day, do not fight it, simply redirect your attention. If fear whispers that nothing is happening, remind yourself of the farmer who trusts the soil. If impatience tempts you to abandon the process and return to struggle and effort, remember that the struggle and effort were producing limited results before, and that you turned to this teaching precisely because you were ready for something more. The something more requires a new way of being, and a new way of being requires patience with yourself as you grow into it. There was a man I will call Ezra who tested this principle to its very limit. Ezra desired to be free of a crushing financial debt that had accumulated over years of medical expenses following an accident. The debt was enormous, more than he could imagine paying off through his regular income in a decade. He learned the pre-sleep technique and began to practice it with sincerity. Every night he imagined himself holding a letter stating that his debts were cleared, that his account balance was zero, that he was free. He felt the lightness, the relief, the sheer joy of being unburdened. He practiced for 3 months with no visible change. He practiced for 6 months, still nothing. The debts remained. The collection calls continued. The weight of obligation pressed upon him every day. But Ezra, for reasons he could not fully explain even to himself, refused to stop. There was something in the practice itself, a peace that settled over him each night as he entered the imaginal scene, that kept him coming back even when every shred of external evidence suggested it was pointless. In the 9th month, a letter arrived, not the letter he had imagined, but a letter that set in motion the events leading to its fulfillment. A class action lawsuit had been filed against the manufacturer of the medical device involved in his accident. Ezra had not known about the lawsuit. He had not initiated it. He had not even known the device was defective. But the law firm handling the case had identified him as a qualifying plaintiff, and the eventual settlement, which took another 4 months to finalize, was sufficient to clear every penny of his medical debt and leave a substantial remainder. 13 months. That was the bridge of incidents between Ezra's first imaginal act and the final fulfillment of his desire. 13 months during which nothing appeared to be happening and everything was happening. Had Ezra given up at month 3 or month 6 or even month 12, he would have missed the harvest that was ripening just beyond the reach of his perception. Persistence is not stubbornness. Persistence is faith in action. It is the daily renewal of your commitment to the truth you have chosen, the nightly return to the feeling of fulfillment, the steady refusal to let appearances dictate your beliefs. And this brings me to perhaps the most profound dimension of this entire teaching, the relationship between your individual mind and the infinite mind that interpenetrates all things. When you practice the pre-sleep technique, you are not performing a psychological trick. You are not manipulating your brain chemistry. You are engaging in an act of communion with the deepest reality in the universe. Your subconscious mind is not a box inside your head. It is a field, a vast, boundless, interconnected field of intelligence that extends beyond your body, beyond your immediate environment, beyond the boundaries of time and space as you understand them. When you impress an idea upon this field with feeling and conviction, you are not sending a message to a local processor. You are broadcasting a signal across the entire network of existence, and existence responds. This is why the technique can produce results that seem to defy logical explanation. The arrival of money from unexpected sources, the appearance of people you have never met who carry exactly what you need, the opening of doors you did not know existed in buildings you had never entered. These are not miracles in the supernatural sense. They are the natural operations of a mind that is infinitely larger than the body it inhabits, infinitely more connected than the personality it animates, and infinitely more powerful than the conscious intellect that sits upon its surface like a small boat on an immeasurable sea. You are that sea. You are not merely the boat. You are the depth and the vastness and the power of the sea itself, temporarily focused into a single point of awareness called your life. And when you go within, when you quiet the chatter of the surface mind and descend into the silent depths of the subconscious, you are returning to the ocean. You are remembering what you are. And from that place of remembering, you can create anything. Not because you are a magician, but because you are a channel for the infinite creative power that is the source and substance of all that exists. Psalm 23, that most beloved of all psalms, captures this truth with poetic perfection. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. The green pastures are the abundant provision of the infinite mind. The still waters are the calm, receptive state of the subconscious in which impressions are most effectively planted. The restoration of the soul is the healing and renewal that occurs when you align your inner life with the truth of your divine nature. This is not religion. This is reality. This is the most practical, the most applicable, the most immediately relevant truth you will ever encounter. And it is available to you right now, not in a church, not in a temple, not at the feet of a guru, but in the quiet sanctuary of your own mind, in the sacred moments before sleep, in the still, small space where you and the infinite meet and create together. As we draw this teaching to a close, I want to leave you with something that I hope will stay with you not just tonight, but for the rest of your life. Everything you have heard in this message, every principle, every technique, every story points to a single, luminous truth. You are far greater than you have ever been told. The limitations you have accepted are not real. The boundaries you have lived within are not walls. They are chalk lines drawn on the ground, and you can step over them any time you choose. The life you have been living is not the life you are destined to live. It is merely the life your subconscious mind has been instructed to create based on the beliefs and feelings you have held until now. Change the beliefs, change the feelings, change the instructions. And the life changes not slowly, not grudgingly, but with the joyful, abundant, overflowing generosity of an infinite source that has been waiting, patiently and lovingly, for you to ask. Tonight, when you close your eyes, do not fall asleep in worry. Do not fall asleep in fear. Do not fall asleep rehearsing the problems of the day or the uncertainties of tomorrow. Fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. See your desire as accomplished. Feel the reality of it in your body, in your heart, in the deepest core of your being. Let that feeling be the last thing you experience as consciousness dissolves into sleep. And know with a certainty that nothing can shake, that as you sleep, the infinite intelligence within you is receiving your instruction and beginning to create. It is moving across the face of the deep, bringing order out of chaos, light out of darkness, abundance out of lack, and the fullness of your desire out of the invisible realm of possibility into the solid, tangible, undeniable world of your waking experience. You have been given a gift tonight. The gift is not these words. The gift is the truth that these words point toward, the truth that has always lived within you, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be claimed, waiting to be lived. You are the operant power. You are the creative authority in your own life. The subconscious mind is your servant, and infinite intelligence is your partner. And together, your subconscious and the infinite, there is nothing that cannot be accomplished, no desire that cannot be fulfilled, no dream that is too large for the power that dwells within you. The principles you have received tonight are offered to you as educational and inspirational guidance drawn from the timeless philosophy of subconscious mind science. This content has been created as an original work to honor and extend the spirit of these universal teachings. What you do with this knowledge, how you apply it, how you test it, how you integrate it into the unique circumstances of your own life, is entirely in your hands. No teaching can guarantee a specific outcome, because the outcome depends not on the teaching but on the depth and consistency of your application. What many have experienced, and what the principle itself affirms, is that when you sincerely and persistently impress upon the subconscious mind the feeling of your desire fulfilled, the creative law responds. It responds not as a favor but as a function, naturally, reliably, and in accordance with the nature of the impression given. Use personal judgment. Take inspired action. Seek wise counsel when needed. And above all, trust the magnificent intelligence within you that has sustained your heartbeat since before you drew your first breath, that heals your wounds while you sleep, that orchestrates a billion biological processes in perfect harmony every moment of your life without a single conscious instruction from you. That intelligence is your ally. That intelligence is your partner. That intelligence is, in the most intimate and sacred sense, who you really are. Go forward now with confidence. Go forward with faith. Go forward with the unshakable knowing that you are a child of the infinite, that abundance is your nature, that prosperity is your birthright, and that the power to create the life you desire has never been outside you. It has been waiting, all along, in the silent, sacred depths of your own subconscious mind. And so it is.